Hi, my name is Roland and welcome to my VectrexRoli show. Again, I would like to show you something special. We will have a look at 3 mechanical tabletop games from the 1970s and 80s, and I showed you already some electronic games from that era on my channel. For example, I showed the excellent game Firefox F7, which was one of the best electronic space shooter games you could get back then. I will link to that video just in case you have not seen that already. Some people think that arcade games started with the invention of electronics and integrated circuits, but that's not the case. Everything was mechanical before. There were even excellent electromechanical arcade games available in the 1960s and 70s, and I'm not talking about pinball machines here. Just look for that on YouTube, and if you have not seen that before, you will be surprised what was possible back then without any computer chips. I want to start with the oldest of the 3 games. This here is Blip, and it was released by a company called Tommy in 1977. It was also marketed under different other names like World Tennis or blip-o-matic, for example. As you can see from the whole design, they wanted to let it look like a computer game. Basically, this is a mechanical version of the famous arcade game Pong from Atari, which was similar to another electronic tennis TV game created by Ralph Baer. So as we can see, back in 1977, computers were cool and interesting for kids, and below the Blip logo on the case, they were even saying "the digital game", which is basically a lie. The only 2 electronic components in the whole game are a resistor and a red LED that creates a red ball or dot on the screen, and if they wouldn't have used the dark translucent plastic for the screen, they wouldn't need to use any LED light at all. On the bottom side of the case they put some instructions. You can play in 1 or 2 player mode. First you switch on the red LED, which is powered by 2 AA batteries, and then you turn the timer. When sliding the red surf switch, the game starts. There are 3 spaces or areas, and the player must push the corresponding button before the ball hits that space, and if you press the wrong button or you are too slow, the ball will stop. Gameplay continues until either the timer stops or one of the gamers earns 10 points. Ball movements are random and I didn't play the game that much, so it is quite hard for me to show you gameplay footage even in 1 player mode. But I know that experienced players will recognize some patterns in the ball movement after some time, so I would have no chance against such an experienced player in 2 player mode. I guess back in 1977 it must have been pretty cool to play this with your friends, and you even could take that with you on a trip. Keep in mind there were no mobile phones, no tablets, not even Game Boys available back then. I guess playing it during classes was not a good idea, as the whole mechanical setup is quite loud, but still, when you couldn't afford a real computer game back then, this was the next best thing to get. The next game is a handheld or tabletop racing game from 1980, made by a Japanese company, and on the backside it says Alps Toy. Also, this game was available under several different names, like Action Racer for example. Here in my case the game got the German title Formel 1, which means Formula 1, as you might know. The number 1 looks like the letter I here. On the back side there is a sticker with the logo from a German mail order company called Quelle. The Quelle brand name is still around today, even it is owned by another company now. Anyway, there were similar electromechanical racing games available from other companies like Tommy, and also like with the first game Blip, the intention here was that the game should look like a computer game from the late 1970s, early 1980s. When you look closely, they even tried to emulate the look of a black and white screen here with the white cars on a black background, and as I remember there really were similar looking video games existing back then. When crashing your car you get some simple explosion effect, which is basically just a red light. Let's have a quick look at the controls first. Of course, there is a steering wheel, as you would expect from a racing game. There is also a distance counter beside the screen that shows how far you came with your car, and there is a wheel to reset that to 0. You can use a brake lever, which slows down or even stops only cars on the left lane, and I can only guess that the game is not broken and that's how the game was intended to be. I could not find any video now showing that exact game in action to compare it, but looking at the gameplay mechanics, that behavior would make sense at least. There is also a crash counter and you have to press the button next to it to continue the game after crash and to increase that counter. There is also an on-off switch. Unlike the first game you saw here, the battery really does power a small motor, and the noise of that device fits quite well the whole racing theme of that game. You have to use 2 AA batteries and there is no connector for a power supply. When you use your brake, the cars on the left lane stop, and that should give the illusion that they are as fast as your car. In that case, the distance counter stays at the same value, so it does not make sense just to use the brake all the time and wait on the left lane. I thought it could be interesting for you to see the inside of the whole machinery. The cars are printed on something that looks like film strips, which have to be transparent to see the red explosion light beneath in case of a crash. This game is a nice and interesting collector's item. Gameplay wise it didn't age well, and let's think about it, racing video games are basically simulation games, and usually old racing games in general didn't age well, and here we have now an electromechanical game simulating an old electronic video game, so that definitely does not help to get great gameplay that kids would enjoy much today, I guess. Even I didn't own such games back then, I still remember that my colleagues at school had such racing games, so it is nice for me to experience that again now. Now let's come to the last and best game. This is Tricky Traps, an electromechanical game made by Tommy. Before I show you how it works, I would like to mention that I got this kindly donated by my workmate Thomas and his wife Karin. Thomas is a friendly guy who sits close to me in the office, and as he knows that I don't have any friends, I guess he wanted to cheer me up a bit. So Thomas and Karin, if you see this, thank you very much for that. I even got a great Nintendo Game & Watch LCD game from them, Snoopy Tennis, but that might be a subject for another video. To run the game you need one C battery, and again there is no connector for an optional power supply. I don't know exactly when Tricky Traps was released, I only know it was also available as another version with different looking stickers and a beautiful name, Yeeaghh. No, I'm not making this up, it is really called Yeeaghh, spelled with 4 A's. In this game you have to guide 5 steel balls from start to goal within a defined period of time, and there are 10 obstacles on your way. First you tilt the case and make sure all balls are placed up top ready for start. Next you set the timer dial to start the game, and then you push the red button to bring the ball into play. After that you use the white push control button to evade obstacles, and those obstacles or traps look quite funny in my opinion. There is even some yellow spinning thing that looks like a periscope, and that one has a magnet built in that picks up the ball. This is really well made and thought through. As the game designers from Tommy didn't try to simulate or emulate a computer game here, this game is pretty unique. I guess kids would still enjoy that today. Only downside is that you need to put it on a flat surface, so you cannot really hold it in your hands on a bus trip, for example. I cannot remember seeing that game back then. There were only those Tommy Water games all over the place in my neck of the woods, but Tricky Traps is much more fun than that. But that's because I think the water games were made for younger children. By the way, there is also a simulator for Tricky Traps available on iTunes for Apple devices called iTraps, but it is not for free and I only have an older iPod with a small screen, and also what I saw on video about iTraps didn't really convince me personally now, but maybe you still want to have a look in case you own an iPad. I'm used to excellent handheld game simulators for PC and those are even for free, but in case you own the latest iPad, I will show you something now. Oh look! The battery in my Tricky Traps game is not working anymore. What should we do now? You know what? Let's replace it with a new battery that only will take you a few seconds. Yes, those were the 80s. And now go and try the same with your new iPad today. So I hope that you enjoyed this episode here. A few weeks ago I saw a similar game from Tommy on a video from a fellow YouTuber. His channel name is Down the Rabbit Hole, and he showed another interesting game called Yeeaghh on his channel. I will link to that video, so go and check that out, and also check out his channel. Maybe you also like the mix of nerdy stuff you see there. This guy could definitely need more subscribers. Please like, share and subscribe, say hello to us also on Facebook and feel free to leave a comment. Thanks for watching.